Everybody is dealing with something. And that's really why I want to share these stories, because the more stories we tell, the more people can relate to them, and hopefully we can help, get through their own struggle.
Yeah, so it's super simple to do a podcast. You basically just need a couple of microphones and sit down and talk for a little while.
It's 100% okay not to be okay. It's really common, actually. Just don't let yourself stay in that.
We're constantly publishing new content. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell.
All right, you guys, welcome to Tattoos of My Soul podcast. I'm excited to have, honestly, one of my favorite people in the room with me. I truly love Courtney Grabill. So a little bit of how we know each other. Welcome, first of all, to the podcast. We've known each other for several years. We, through just your parents, Lindsay and I met your parents first because they have a pool business. And so they put our pool in for us. Yeah. And then just by kind of default got to know you. But then I had the privilege of coaching you for a season about a year ago or so. Yeah, that was. And so, and we've just stayed friends and close. And I honestly, I have a hard time not getting emotional talking about you.
I was thinking about
because we had our seminar back in January, and you were there, and I was just, you are such a perfect example of all of the things that I preach. You have gone through a really difficult time, which you're going to explain here in a few minutes. But I have loved being someone in your life, not only as a support and a coach, but just also being able to witness and observe the transformation that has taken place in you. Because I knew you before your struggle, and now knowing you, as you've gone through it, and you still continue to work through it. Right. The growth and the strength that I've seen come from you has been amazing. And you were 27 years old, so still pretty young, and I just admire the wisdom and everything that you have shown in the last year and a half. So what I did with you was I sent Courtney just a list of questions that I kind of thought might be and prompts that might be good to discuss today to kind of help tell her story. And what I want to say right off the bat is if you are someone who has ever struggled with anxiety, depression, panic attacks, or somebody that struggles in that way, or if you've even just felt a little bit of that, you want to listen to this podcast. Yeah, because for sure. That's really what we're doing this for. We want to provide personal experience. We've both been on this journey. I think that's another reason why we connected so much is because we understand each other's struggle. But we've both been on this journey. We've both done the work, continue to do the work, and we just want to share because anxiety is just, if you look at the statistics, anxiety just continues to increase. Depression just continues to increase. And I am glad that you're of the younger age because I think there's so many young people today struggling this way, and they don't want to talk about it. Yeah. And so I love that you're here. And so I want to, is there anything you want to share before we get started or before we kind of go through everything that we talked about before?
Yeah, I just think exactly what you said. If you struggle with anxiety, I think even if you know someone that struggles with this or any realm of this area, that you can get something from this to help someone else. Right. Because it's so common nowadays. So
exactly. So let's just dive right in.
Sure.
Okay. So the first question I said to you was describe your experience with anxiety, kind of the onset and what transpired as much as you're comfortable sharing. Now, again, I've never really done this on a podcast before, but Courtney went ahead and filled out her answers for the questions. And I said, they're so good. Yeah. Would you mind just reading what you wrote? And then we could talk about it a little afterwards. So that's what we're going to do here. So,
okay. So October 2023, which was right after my wedding. I still remember the exact moment it happened. My heart just started to race uncontrollably. I couldn't take a deep enough breath to fill my lungs. I felt super lightheaded. I was hit with like a wave of nausea and just literally clenching my chest and feeling fully lost, and it, like no like reality was just like gone for me for a moment. Overwhelmed with immense fear, and that was my first panic attack ever. It was just like boom, life changed after that. I just continued to experience panic attacks and waves of super, super intense anxiety for months following my first episode. So yeah.
And this was like right after you had gotten married, like
Yeah.
shortly after that. And you said that you started to feel kind of some of the anxiety come when you guys were going through, you know, wedding plans and then the actual day of the wedding, but it really hit you strong afterwards.
Yeah.
And do you, now that you've kind of had some time, you know, there's been some time separating that, do you have any thoughts on like what triggered that, or do you think it was a lot of the stress, or?
Yeah, I think it was just a combination of things when I look back and just kind of think about what I had going in my life, what I had recently gone through or just dealt with.
Yeah.
I don't think anything crazy traumatic has to happen necessarily to experience it. I mean, unfortunately, obviously that is some people's experience, but it wasn't mine. And yeah, I think it was just a combination of things. And I'm just kind of a perfectionist, worrier, anxious person to begin with.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was far off for my body to get to that point.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you said like you don't have to have a trauma to have panic attacks and like this wave of anxiety come on, because I think a lot of people feel like they do, and then when they feel this way, they're like, what's wrong with me? Like, my life is, you know, from all, you know, aspects pretty good,
Right.
so why am I feeling this way? And then they start to feel like something's wrong.
Yeah. And I remember like in my situation, I would kind of like belittle what I was going through in a way, because I'm like, I didn't go through anything crazy or anything traumatic. Like, I shouldn't feel this way. Like, my life's not that bad. I just got married. I'm happy. Like, what's going on?
By all
Like,
accounts,
what's wrong
that
with
should
me?
be great.
Yeah. So, and then in the next part of my like description here, I just said, I literally became anxiety. Like, if you wanted to know what anxiety was, you could just be with me 24/7 and you would know. I was just allowing it to literally control me, every single aspect of my everyday life, from the moment I woke up until I went to sleep, just repeating that cycle over and over, literally every single day. And I just remember in the depths of this that I was just watching my life happen instead of actually living it. Like, I would just be sitting there completely detached and just lost in my head because I was so consumed and worried about what was going on up there. I just truly, like we said, did not experience one big event to set this off. I think it was just a combination of things. And some of you can probably relate to that, or maybe yours did start because of a big traumatic event. But regardless, you know, I wanted this storm to pass fast, just like I know a lot of other people do when they are experiencing anxiety.
Yes.
Just like, I don't want it, like, get rid of it kind of attitude I had at first. So
Right. I love the way that you describe this, because it's so accurate. Like, to say I became anxiety. Because that's 100% what happens. You know, I know that feeling well as well, also. And it is like your being just becomes that, like all of the physical sensations, the super rapid thoughts, it's like this mental chaos that takes over, that seems so much bigger than you. And you do detach, you know, because you're just like trying to cope and figure out how to feel somewhat okay. Which you don't really know how to do.
I don't think you notice it in the moment either. Like, I mean, parts of me did, but literally, like, you know, months after, when I was out of it, you know, my husband was like, oh yeah, did you see that I fixed this in the house or something like that? I'm like, I didn't even notice. Like, I had no idea. I was so focused on trying to get through the day that that was nothing to my brain.
Exactly. So you're 100% right. You're not actually living. You're just kind of trying to survive at that point when it's that like that. So you get married, boom, anxiety sets in. What was kind of your husband thinking at this point? What was Jaden saying?
I don't know what he was thinking.
Where's that girl that I married?
I mean, he knew that I was anxious already, so he kind of already dealt with that, but because he's way more laid back and calm just in general. We're like yin and yang. But he he was there when my first panic attack happened, and then he had a trip, so then he was gone, and it was just me and my mom. But they both definitely became, I guess, to word it, like my safe people for months. Like I had to have one of them close by, or else it would just send me into a panic. But yeah, I think he was just overall just worried.
Yeah.
And just like, I don't know how best to help you, but let me just try and reassure you the best I know how. So it was just kind of both of us figuring out how to work through it together.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love how supportive he's been of you and how positive. Yeah. The next thing I asked you was, how does anxiety affect the body, mind, and spirit?
Yeah. So anxiety was just my life at that moment of time. So it was affecting everything for me. So my mental health was on the decline. My body physically was dropping weight rapidly. I just like couldn't eat. I didn't have an appetite. My spirit was drained. I was just down bad. I was worn out. Like I just felt like my life was on pause. And every time that I would, try to get out of this or hit play, I was just right back to where I started, right back to anxiety, to panic, to worry, overthinking, all those negative things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember, like, from the physical standpoint, you did drop weight, and you also, your gut was completely out of whack.
Yeah.
Like, just, you were having a lot of just gut issues when you ate, and, when you did eat, and that really highlights the connection between our gut microbiome and our brain. We know that they're 100% connected. So I think it's very common for people, like, if you are an anxious person, to also have gut issues, and that's because, a lot of people don't realize that most of our serotonin is produced in our gut. So when our gut's off, the brain is going to feel off, and vice versa. So if you're listening, you might kind of start taking note, like, of all these different things that can happen within your mind and your physical body when anxiety is super prevalent. Yes.
Yeah. So I felt like I had a lot of things just kind of falling apart all at once. So I did notice when I was going through that time, which I know this won't be, how everyone operates, but I was doing a lot of what I could control during that moment. So I was really good about my skincare and like, I don't know, just things like that I knew like I can control this and this will make me feel better.
Yep.
Because I couldn't really do much to help with my anxiety at that moment or my appetite or anything like that.
Right.
So I noticed that I was clinging a lot more to those types of things that I knew like I can still do this.
Yes.
Like at least, yes, my, my physical, my mental is crappy right now, but I can still take good care of my skin. And then when I get all this other stuff,
great skin.
Yeah, when I get all this other stuff figured out, it'll all line up and.
Well, that's interesting you point that out, because anxiety, the problem with anxiety is it makes us feel completely out of control.
Yeah.
So we're usually just grasping for something, like you said, to get that sense of control, even if it's just a little something. So that makes total sense. So when did you get to the point, my next question, when you realized, okay, this is bigger than me, I need support, I'm not really sure how to navigate through this.
Yeah.
When did you get to that point, and what steps did you take?
So for me, I just knew like almost immediately, like I wanted and needed support from the moment it started, because I just don't like feeling off.
Yeah.
I think that comes from being a perfectionist and just also who wants to feel like that. But I just knew that I didn't have the knowledge and tools to get through it the best way possible. Like I knew I could try myself, but I knew it would go a lot smoother if I had help. So yeah, I just knew my life would improve if I took the step to get help. I pretty much reached out to my doctor immediately to explain my situation. And shortly after that, I had, met with a therapist and got started in that, and then connected with Molly for life coaching, which is funny how that worked out, which we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, so my struggle just pushed me out of my comfort zone, and it's continued to do that. Even now, I just let go of any shame I had, because I was just so desperate for relief. I didn't care who knew what I was going through, who I had to tell. I'm like, somebody help me. Because I just needed guidance, and I quickly became like okay with that. I was like, I need help, and that is okay.
Yep.
So
100%.
Yeah. And it's so funny that we connected at that get together that you guys had.
Oh yeah.
Because I wasn't even gonna go, because I was sick really sick. And then also that was when my anxiety and panic had started. I was trying a med from my doctor, giving me horrible side effects, like getting off of that. And my husband was gone. And yeah, I was just in the depths of it. And my mom was like, oh, I'm going to go to this party for Molly. Like, if you want to go. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I was literally in the shower. And then she called me. She's like, I'm getting ready to leave. I was like, you know what? Just wait. I'm going to go. Like, I need to get out of the house. This will be good for me. And then, yeah, it just kind of all lined up after
and
that.
I remember seeing you and I could tell something was off.
Yeah.
I think because like when you've been in this place, you can see it in other people.
Yeah, you're
like,
more
you can
sensitive
recognize
to that.
it.
Yeah.
And plus I knew you. And so I remember talking, I think I talked to your mom first and she kind of clued me in.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you need to come see me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
when do you want to come in? I didn't really give you much of a choice.
Yeah. Which I liked because that like pushed me to do it more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But I want to go back to what you said about the shame. And I'm so glad that you didn't get stuck there, but so many people do. And there is this stigmatism around mental health, and we don't want to talk about things. Like, we'll talk about I've said this a million times before, we'll talk about our gut issues, our chronic fatigue, you know, our joint issues, our weight. We'll talk about all those things all day long. We'll even talk about our IBS.
Right.
But we don't want to talk about the stuff up here, our mental health.
Right.
And so I want to say to anyone listening, if you are someone who is silently suffering with any of this, or more or less, or somewhere in between, there is no shame in saying, I need help, I need support. I, in fact, think it is a huge sign of strength when people say, I need help, because it's not easy to do.
Right.
It takes a strong person to admit that and put it out there. You know, what are your thoughts?
Oh, yeah, I agree. I'm a pretty open person. So when it came to that, you know, there were moments where I did struggle with shame and guilt almost for making the people around me have to deal with what I was going through alongside me. But that's life. Like, everybody is going to struggle at some point, and you know, there will be a time where I will have to step up for those people and they will have to step up for me again, vice versa. And I just think like people should just be more honest and open. You know, social media is such like just a highlight reel of people's lives, and even I'm guilty of that, like not purposely, but I just don't put a lot of like my struggles out there. But I think that's why it's so important, you know, not even just on social media to be more open about it, but just in your everyday general life. Just like, being more open about it, because then the people that you're talking to are more likely to open up to you and just connect and realize like, oh my gosh, we are human. Like, this is normal. Nothing is wrong with me. Like, this is just a human experience. It's just a human emotion.
Yes. Yeah. See, this is the wisdom I'm talking about. It's coming now. It's so good. It's so good. I feel like you need to like start a blog or like your own podcast.
I know.
Or something. It's so good. Okay, so talk to me about tools, strategies that have been impactful and helpful to you. These are so good, the things that you listed here.
Yeah. So let's see.
You've got somebody you follow on TikTok.
I don't know how you say her last name correctly.
Sayas?
Yeah, something along those lines.
Sayas.
Yep.
Lily Sayas.
And her Instagram, I believe, is Peace From Within is her username. And she also has a TikTok, but I believe she used to be like a school psychologist or something along those lines, but she herself has also experienced a lot of this. So I think I just relate a lot to people who have experienced it because, you know, like they can understand where I'm coming from. But her main thing is like, she just really clicked with me when I was going through it. She was like, your innate well-being is always there under that temporary thought storm. Like, your body's natural habit is gonna go back to your norm. Like, you cannot stay like this forever. So I just had to realize that I needed to stop trying to control my anxiety and understand that it was just my body's natural response to the fear that I was feeding it from the thoughts that I was just endlessly letting cycle in my head. You know, I didn't need to fight that feeling, and I just needed to allow it and let it pass, just like a storm. I just had to stop giving every thought in my head all of my attention to analyze, to try to figure out, to worry over. I just had to let go, let God. And anxiety was just not going to control me. It got to the point where I was so sick of it. I'm like, you know, I think even my therapist or you at one point said, you're literally letting your anxiety control you. And I'm like, let me reflect on that. Yeah, I am. Like, I'm literally letting it run my life,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have to. Like,
Yeah.
my brain is thinking these things, but I don't need to worry about these things. I don't need to give it more attention.
More power.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
like when someone's like, don't think about a pink elephant. Your brain's going to
Yeah.
think about that. So
Exactly.
it's like, oh, I don't want to be anxious, but here I am sitting here literally for hours worrying about the thoughts in my head and what I'm going through. Just everything was anxiety in my
Yes.
head. So,
Yes.
yeah.
It's so spot on. I love a couple of things that you said. So first of all, I agree with her 100% that your body's, what did she say? Innate nature.
Your
or-
innate well-being is
innate
there
well-being.
under the temporary thoughts.
Yes,
Yeah.
because one of the things I kind of like to say is like that inner wisdom, that that inner like peace is always there, but it gets covered up by all the layers of fear and stress. So it's essentially the same thing. So I agree 100% with that. We have to figure out how to tap back into that, you know. But the main thing I love that you said, and I actually just was coaching someone the other day. She's young, same stuff, anxiety, compulsive, intrusive thoughts. And I said the first step, and I said, you're going to think this sounds counterintuitive. The first step to getting your anxiety to decrease and maybe even eventually go away is getting really comfortable with it. And getting like, just, okay, it's here.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to like freak out. I'm not going to like spiral. I feel anxious. Why do I feel anxious? And just, I won't steal your thunder, but you go on to say, like, you almost kind of look at it as like this friend
Yeah. Just
that
like,
is in the room with you.
right. A place of understanding. You need to understand it. Like, that is your body's natural response to what you're going
Yeah.
through. So I think once you start to understand it more, you realize like this isn't so wild to be going through.
Right.
And also I think in that moment when you're in the depths of stuff like that, when you hear someone like you saying that, you're like, oh my gosh, like that sounds so crazy. Like, I don't want my anxiety to be worse. Like, I'm already
Yes.
struggling. Or,
Yes.
when someone's like, you will get through this. I know it sounds so annoying when you're going through that, but it's true. And
is.
as you get further along in your journey and you do start to heal, those things will come back in your head and will start to click with you. You're like, yes, I will get through this, all of those things will start to make sense.
Yeah.
At some point. It is just
yeah.
annoying to hear sometimes,
Yeah.
depending on where you're at.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, because when you are feeling so anxious or you're having the panic attacks, you just want it to go away.
Right.
And the problem with the panic attacks is, as you know, it's this big cycle. We have one, and then we're constantly anticipating when the next one is going to come. And one of the things I kind of taught my brain to think when I would have a panic attack, because like after the trauma that I went through, I had really, really bad panic attacks. They always came at night. There was a few that I thought, like, I remember thinking, like, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
Like, I can't breathe. I literally felt like my heart was going to pound out of my chest, like, this is not normal.
Right.
And but obviously I've survived all those. And I remember that's what I started saying to myself, training my brain to think that when I would feel that panic start to come up, instead of getting like, oh my God, here it comes again, I don't want to do this, I hate the way this feels, I would say, okay, I don't like this, but I survived the last one.
Right.
I made it through the last one. I'm going to make it through this one.
Yeah.
Like, and I remember you and I having that discussion.
Oh, yeah.
You coming in my office, like, sometimes really just, like in a whole big disarray.
Yeah.
And I would say, Courtney, like, you survived, like,
Right.
last week.
Yeah.
You were not feeling good, but you're still here. Like,
Yeah.
we just are going to keep putting one foot in front of the other, And I think it's reminding yourself, because the brain wants to say, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, intense. And just reminding yourself, like, you're okay. Like,
Yeah.
I know it sounds so basic.
It's like bringing yourself back to reality.
Yeah.
Like,
But you kind of
You
have
will
to
be
coach
okay.
yourself.
Yeah.
You have to be like, remember when we were talking about, like, talk to yourself as if you're like this little girl.
Right, yeah.
Like, how would you talk to your 6-year-old self? You would say, it's going to be okay. Like, I know you don't like feeling this way, but you're going to get through this, and you're not alone. And so you're talking to yourself in that way. It absolutely is effective, and it helps.
for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, because we would even talk to a friend, spouse,
Exactly.
whoever that way.
Right.
But when it comes to ourselves, we're so much harder.
Oh my God, why are you feeling this
Yeah.
way? What's wrong with you? You're going crazy, all those things. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just had to also come to recognize that, you know, I had that panic attack and my body knew what it took to make that happen. So that became my comfortable chaos.
Yep.
Like that became comfortable for my body to go to that. And it's
Exactly.
still so easy for my body to want to go to that.
Yes.
And moments when I get anxious, but now because I know what's happening, because I'm aware,
Yeah.
I'm able to stop that. Like
Yes.
usually,
Yes.
just tell myself like, okay, you understand your body now. You know that your body is just trying to protect you because it recognizes these anxious feelings, these anxious thoughts, but doesn't need to go to the panic.
Right.
You know, you can just, okay, I was on my way to work. I'm still going to go to work and I'm going to do whatever it was that I was going to do before I started to feel anxious.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think once you become more aware and just understand it better, you're able to be more okay with what's happening.
Yeah. And you're able to, every time that you make your way through it and it doesn't derail you, that's like the inner muscle getting stronger,
Yep.
you know? And I think a lot of the times, especially when we start to feel this and we're not really quite sure what to do with it, anxiety does derail us. Like you said, I was anxiety.
Right.
So it's derailing you in all aspects of your life. You kind of get to a point where it's hard to function. But then when you start to say, okay, wait a minute, I'm just going to take some small little steps and start to maneuver through that, we start to slowly gain confidence a little bit over time. That's one of the main things I've seen in you, like over the last year, is like this confidence come from you, which we'll talk about some more in a minute, because now you're doing things that never would have done
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
like leading groups of women and things. So yeah, the confidence comes. Tell me about some other things that you do, tools, strategies that have been helpful for you, because these are all really good.
Yeah. So another thing that I would often repeat to myself was, just because you think something does not mean this is what you want. And that mostly had to do with when I was struggling with like intrusive thoughts and stuff. Like, not that I was necessarily like to the point where I would, you know, like suicidal or anything like that, but it was just like fearful of going crazy, fearful of like getting to a point like that or needing to go to a psych ward, which, you know, no shame in that if that is someone's experience, but I was just terrified of that. But I had to recognize that like, just because my brain is thinking that does not mean that that is what I want or what is going to happen.
Exactly.
You know, and I actually wrote down about that exercise that you had me do, where we would write down like, you know, my top 5 thoughts that I just kept struggling with, whatever they were, that I just couldn't let go of. And she was like, what evidence do you have to back these thoughts up? And I was like, nothing really.
Like, where's your proof that you're going to a mental hospital?
Right. Like my brain is just telling me that I am. So yeah, usually if you write down those thoughts and you just really look at them, you know, what evidence do you have to back them up? Usually you don't have anything. It's just an anxious thought, which okay, I'm having that. Let's just let it pass. This is not going to happen. And even if it does happen, which like you said, I have the tools, I have the people, like I will get through it, you know? And then another method that really helped me a lot was the DARE method. I actually had the book by this guy and I forgot to write his name down, but if you look up the DARE method, his book will 100% pop up. But so it stands for, the D stands for diffuse, A, allow, R, run toward, and E, engage. So to diffuse it, he says, challenge any negative thoughts by asking, so what? Like, okay, what's the big deal? You know, and allow it. Accept your anxious feelings and thoughts. Understand where they're coming from. And then, you know, my least favorite was the R, run toward. Reframe the anxiety as a positive feeling, like excitement. You know, make anxiety your friend. Welcome it in. Say, okay, you want to be anxious today? That's fine. Give it to me. You want to have a panic attack today? That's fine. Yeah. And just the last thing was engage. Just really focus on the present and the activities that capture your attention, and just keep living your life even if you're anxious. So I really started to practice that. And all of this stuff was intentional in the beginning and took a lot of effort. It was not easy. It was very annoying. But it was like, I would notice this and, you know, I would just be like, okay, like even waking up in the morning, be like, you're anxious? That's fine. You want to be anxious all day? Okay. And then I'm just going about my normal routine, and, slowly over time, repeating that process,
Yep.
it got easier and easier. So
Yes. So I have heard an analogy that thoughts are like birds. Let's see if I can get this straight. That birds can fly into trees, but they don't need to stay and make a nest.
Right.
Meaning we are going to have all kinds of thoughts. And sometimes our thoughts are really crazy. Like, when you're driving, have you ever thought,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
what would happen if I all of a sudden just went off this ramp? Does that mean that you're going to drive off the ramp? Absolutely not. Our mind just does these crazy things. But we don't have to get attached. We don't have to let them stay and make the nest, so to speak. And so that's what the DARE methods kind of speaks to me, is you're just stripping away the power of all those negative thoughts. And then you're reframing with the positive thoughts, which you want to feed with intention, which gives more power to them, obviously. I wanted to share, so one of the things I've done with my anxiety is I've trained my brain, when I feel anxious, that's an indicator to pray. So for example, sometimes, even now, after all the work that I've done, I will still wake up in the middle of the night, and for some reason, like around 3 a.m., that's when the anxiety wants to and I'll just start thinking like random things.
Yeah.
And I always notice, I'll even wake up in the morning and be like, why were you, that's not even a thing to worry about. Like, why were you thinking about that at 3 a.m. last night? But it's just what the brain does. And so instead of getting caught in that cycle and laying there for hours and not being able to go back to sleep, which is what used to happen, now I'll feel it for a few minutes probably. And then I will say, just in my head, I'll say to myself, you don't need to be anxious right now. And then I'll pray, God, just help to calm these anxious thoughts. Like, I know this is not from you. And I just really want to go back to sleep. And I know I know this is just what my brain does. And I'm asking you to just take it away.
Yeah.
And I'll just keep saying that over and over again. And then I fall back asleep.
Yeah.
So it works. I'll do the same thing during the day. So I think if you can change your perspective on how you view anxiety, it doesn't have to be like this big bad monster in the room. Same thing with depression. Same thing with panic attacks. And just start getting comfortable with it, but don't give it any more power than it deserves. You're the one that has the power, not it.
Yeah. And I think that's why it feels so good to pray sometimes about it. Like, I was doing that on the way here just because I felt a little anxious. Like, help me get through this podcast, let me spread my message, yada, yada. And it just feels good because you're letting go of that.
Yes.
You're like, okay, I'm letting go and giving it to God. I don't need to worry about it. So it really does just take, it gives you ease. And every time I do that, I always feel more at peace and just more calm.
Well, there's research that shows like the effect that praying has on your brain. And it stimulates all parts of your brain, but it absolutely, brings in more calm, more peace, all those things. So yeah, absolutely. What else?
So I also would just continually bring myself back to the present moment and remind myself that there's truly nothing to worry about today. Like, whatever's going on in my head, like, let's look at the whole day as a bigger picture here. Like, I don't have anything to worry about today. Like, it's just a normal day, one day at a time. Let's take the small steps that I can today, because that's going to lead to big changes over time. I just stopped expecting to be better overnight. I wanted that so badly. I'm like, someone give me a timeline. When am I going to be better? Tomorrow, I want to be better. And I just actually started to, expect to wake up anxious, but just go on about my day anyway. And another big thing that I started doing was just hobbies. I remember in the beginning, like, people would ask me, what are your hobbies? I'm like, what is that? Like, I don't have hobbies. I was just like, go to work, come home, make dinner, clean up my house, take care of my dogs, maybe go on a walk, maybe work out. But that was it. I didn't really have anything like fun per se that I did. So I just started a book club, got involved in a Bible study, doing more crafts or like little things that I would see on TikTok that you could do, like fridge magnets, I don't know, charm necklaces, all kinds of things. Just hanging out with friends more and being more intentional about that. Because it's not like I didn't want to hang out with them before. It was just, I'm anxious. I don't really feel like it. It's like, no, I don't care that you're anxious. You're going to make the plans and you're going to go. Because, that was just showing my brain, like, look, you're fine. Once you get there, you're fine. Even if you feel a little anxious, you've gotten through it every single time
Exactly.
that you've made these
There's
plans.
your evidence.
Yeah.
There's your positive evidence. That's exactly what you have to do for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, you're stacking your wins.
Yeah.
So every time that you get through that anxious moment, that's another win. And then the brain it wants to take inventory of the good and the bad. So
Right.
you just have to say, take inventory of the good. Like you said, I got through this last time, so I'm gonna get through it again.
Yep.
And you just keep doing that.
Yeah. And I just had to push myself out of my comfort zone.
Exactly.
And, I mean, because I would have just sat there and
Yeah.
stayed in it if I let myself.
Isolation.
Like, that's so easy.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
easy.
And you have to
100%.
stay, intentional about it still, because as soon as you let yourself slowly sleep down the slope, you're back in it. So
Yeah.
just being intentional and aware, like taking inventory of your life, like, where am I at today? Okay, this is what I need to do today to get back on track. Kind of mindset is where I am now. But yeah, and then also a big thing for me was meditation. That was like one of my biggest tools in the depths of it. That really helped me at first with meditation. I'm so impatient. I was like, I'm just thinking about everything random in my head. I'm like,
gonna be over. When is this?
Yeah.
10 minutes gonna be over?
yeah. But it was really good about training my brain to come back to the present moment. I was like, I don't care how many times I need to do this during my meditation, but every single time I catch myself drifting away, I'm going to bring myself back. So it was teaching me that then when I was living my everyday life, like when I'm driving my car and I notice I'm just in my head about my thoughts, I'm like, no, let's look at the trees that you're passing, or like how nice it is outside today, and like literally being present in my drive to work or
Yes.
things like that. So meditation helped me with that. And when I couldn't sleep at night, I would meditate because it would just put my body into this calm, literally slow my heart rate and just slow my brain, like everything, and just like prepare me for bed essentially.
Did you have trouble sleeping when all this was going on?
Yeah. I like nighttime did become my favorite because it was like my brain would be like, okay, you got through the day, you're not going to panic. But I would still feel, physically like wired with anxiety. Like I just couldn't get my body calm enough to want to go to sleep. So the meditation would definitely help. And also just to, train my body like to relax, to calm down.
What kind of meditation did you do?
Oh, a bunch. I tried a bunch.
Did you do like guided meditation?
Yeah, I like guided.
Yeah.
I feel like guided helps keep me on track.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'm just kind of like, la, la, la.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Thinking about my day.
Exactly.
So I like to do guided just because, it keeps me more present, more focused
Yes.
on the task that I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. So for somebody that's not familiar, like I love YouTube. I don't know if you did any, but I would just go onto YouTube and put like if it was nighttime, guided sleep meditation.
Yeah.
I mean, there's literally thousands that pop up. You
Yeah.
know, and you can find one to listen to. There's one, Mindful Christian. That's a really good one that I like. They have one for anxiety. They have one just to like start your day.
Yeah.
Gratitude. But
Yeah, I use 2 apps a lot as well. I did use YouTube, and then I would use the Calm app sometimes at night.
yeah, Calm app's great.
Yeah, because they have meditation on there, but they also just have sleep stories. So sometimes I would play those because it's not something that I actually want to listen to. So my brain's okay relaxing, listening to that to go to sleep to. And then I use this other app. I can't remember the name of it, but it pretty much each day, it was like 5 minutes in the morning. You're going to practice a certain thing, whether it be mindfulness, self-awareness, gratitude, patience. And then in that guided meditation, you would be practicing and focusing on that specific word for the day. And then after that, then you could do just a regular meditation.
Yeah.
And you can select like 5 minutes long, 10 minutes long, 15 minutes long, and the voice you want. And that just kind of helped me too, because I'm just a person that likes things like that to help keep me on track and in the routine. But it would like check me off each day, and that kind of gave me, instant gratification and stuff like that. So
Yeah, that's awesome. You're so spot on with everything you say. I just feel like you just know you're so wise. Yes, it's so good. Your hobbies, your meditation, and then you did coaching with me, and you had a therapist as well. So yes. How is your anxiety now compared to like a year ago? Like on a scale of 1 to 10? What do you think?
it's obviously a lot better. Otherwise, I don't think I would be doing this right now. But yeah, so to answer this question, I thought about how Molly would refer to a scale, is how I kind of call it, when we were in our coaching sessions to like rate how I was feeling. So you're either at your 0 state, which is your worst, or your hero state, which is your best, or somewhere in between. And at one point I was 100% at my 0 state in that journey, you know, or maybe even a couple times throughout it, because progress isn't always linear. So sometimes I maybe was at my 0 state, felt like I was, and then I was back to it, and that's okay. But I would just say now that I'm a lot closer to my hero state, obviously I still have days, but always will be a work in progress. But I'm just so thankful that I'm not where I was a year ago, like, and I didn't stay in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even though I may still experience it here and there, I'm not staying in it.
Yeah. And you have, in coaching, we always talk about tools in your toolbox. You have the tools.
Yeah.
So when you feel it come on, like you said, I've increased my awareness.
Yeah.
I know what these things within my body and within my mind are a signal of. I know what triggers them, and I also know how to counter them. So you're kind of like, I feel like, you know, when this came on, you were just a little helpless and very like a victim to all of it. And now it's like, no, I'm not helpless. I have this power within me that I didn't realize was there. And I have these really powerful, strategic, intentional tools that when I need to use them, I'm pulling them out.
Right.
And I'm using them, and they work.
Yeah. And I think too, like, yes, I was a victim of it, but I was also allowing myself to be a victim of it. I was giving myself too much grace.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm like, no, you have to do something to get out of this. You want to feel better, you need to do something. And, you know, I had to change my mindset because it was so negative. I'm like, your life can change. Like, I just thought in the beginning, like, oh my gosh, like, this is the rest of my life. Like, I am going to be panicking for the rest of my life.
I remember you saying that.
Yeah. And I was just like, I don't know how I can get out of this. Like, I'm trying. Why is nothing happening? But it was just, I wasn't in the right mindset yet. You know, I didn't reach that point yet to where I could have the perspective that I have now. So,
Right.
Yeah.
I think there's like this fine balance of extending grace to yourself, like being kind to yourself, talking to yourself in that loving way, like we were just saying, like the little 6-year-old version of you, but also like, come on, get it together.
Right.
Like, you are better than this. You are more than this. Like the victim mentality, I call it like the victim vacuum, because it's so easy to get sucked into, and a lot of times you don't even realize that you're living there. Like, I was living there after our trauma. I was like in there for about a year.
Right.
I'm like, why did this happen? My life is terrible. My life's awful. That was totally like, I just kept spinning around in that. And you do have to finally say, I cannot change whatever circumstance, or maybe nothing happened. It just came out.
Yeah.
But whatever circumstance, I can't change it, but I can change my perspective on it. I can change how I choose to respond to it. And I totally have power on what I learn from it and how I grow from it.
Yeah.
You know? First. So I think that's one of the main things that I like to tell people is this, and I just told somebody this last week, and I've seen this with you 100%. These things that we go through that are extremely uncomfortable, extremely painful, they can bring out the strongest part of ourselves.
Yeah.
Which leads me, I said to you, hey, do you believe, I may jump ahead, but
That's
it's
fine.
the perfect segue. I said, I'm a big believer that our biggest struggle becomes our biggest strength. And so where are you at on that?
Yeah. I said in my answer that I knew you were going to ask this.
She always says that.
Yeah. So I was already thinking about it even before I had gotten these questions. I was just like, yeah, I mean, I know that that's true for sure. And I agree with it fully. I just don't think I'm there yet 100%. You know, there's still little parts of me that's like, yeah, maybe not, you know, but I know that it's true, and I know that I'm going to get there. And that's why I'm answering, like, let's put that out there. Like, God will make this my biggest strength, because, you know, now that I am where I am now, I can look back before and after, because there is a before and after. You know, before I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to be more patient. You know, I need to have more empathy. I need to stop judging so much. You know, a lot of things that we all do. And I was aware of that. And now afterwards, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so much more patient. I have so much more understanding and empathy for other people. And just all of the things that I was like, I need to work on. I did work on through that. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. when you say you don't know that you're quite there yet with like agreeing your struggle can become your strength, like what's the thought? What's the hold back?
I just feel like I'm still healing. I feel like I know I'm in a good place, but I feel like there will be a moment where I feel even stronger about this, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm getting there.
See, I look at it differently because I feel like I'm still healing. I absolutely know that I am. I think that I'll probably be healing for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I think being able to talk about the weaker parts of ourselves is actually what draws people to us.
Right. Yeah.
And that is the strong part. It's like this weird paradox.
Yeah.
Because when you open yourself up and you say, that's still hard for me.
Yeah.
That's something I'm still working on. What happens is you all of a sudden become much more relatable. You know, you become more approachable. And so I think you're already there.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
Yeah.
And I think that the parts that still need healing, they will by default, probably by this kind of conversation, by work that you do. I see you connecting with a lot of people, you know, and helping them. And I think that will also help you heal more. You know, it certainly has for me.
Yeah. And I forget what you said in our session, but you'll have to word this better. But you're like, everybody has their thing, and ours is just, you know, anxiety, depression, panic, whatever it is. And like, not that we're going to deal with it to the extent that I did a year ago, but it may be something that we wrestle with a little bit for the rest of our lives, you know? It'll just, there'll be ups and downs.
Right. I know that no matter how much work I do, and I'm very consistent, you know, I've got my routine, I do my exercise, I do my time with God, I do all the things that are important for me, and I like my foundation of mental and spiritual health. But I know I'm always going to have that little bit of part of me that's just a little weaker, you know, it just is.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Like, I just know that I have to continue to nurture it and feed it well. And when it does kind of want to get bigger within me, then I just know not to give it too much power. All the things that we've discussed, you know, but I think that I will always, to a degree, struggle with anxiety.
Yeah. Because, I mean, there's some people who don't.
Yeah.
And there's some people who do.
Some people like don't even know what it's like to feel anxious.
Yeah.
But they struggle with something else.
Right.
Like anger or, you know, just super reactive, or there's lots of different things. So when people are in this space, it can kind of seem overwhelming or daunting to like know what to do. Like you said, you're like, it was just annoying. All the little things that I had to do. But I am a huge believer in baby steps or micro steps. And like you said earlier, when you keep doing those small things over time, especially if you're consistent, that's the key. You've got to be consistent. You can have a huge impact. So tell me some of the little small things that you did throughout your day that had a big impact.
I think one of my number ones was definitely gratitude, because before I was negative. And I didn't really practice much gratitude. Like, I'm like, that's like my thing now is like, look for the good. Like, what am I thankful for today?
Yes.
Like at the end of every day, I do that now. Or even when I'm driving to work, I'm like, oh, I'm just so thankful for whatever, you know, whatever I'm thinking at that moment. But I was using,
you know, gratitude changes your brain chemistry. 100%. Like the research
for sure.
shows. They've seen it on MRIs. Yes.
Yeah. And so I was using her journal, and she told me, she's like, when you use this journal, do not put anything negative in here. Let this be the positive, you know, what you're looking forward to, what you want your future to look like. And that really helped train my brain to look for the good, because I was journaling about the good.
Correct.
So I'm like, you know, what am I thankful for today? I would find something. I'm like, you're going to find something at the end of every day, no matter how bad you think your day was. What is something that you're thankful for today? Whether it was something so small, like I got over my panic attack quicker, or I didn't need my husband to help me as much, whatever it was. I just think that gratitude 100% provides a counterbalance to your anxiety.
Yes.
Like you can't really have both at the exact same time.
100%.
So like when I'm super anxious, I'm like, okay, let's look for the good. What am I thankful for today?
It's actually impossible. They have seen, like research shows, it's impossible to feel anxious and grateful at the same time. So you're spot on with that. So I feel like you need to be a life coach. We're going to talk afterwards. I'm like, you're so good. But yes. And it doesn't like, well, I want to go back to the journaling because Obviously I'm a big proponent of journaling. I created a journal, but when I tell people to journal, a lot of the times I get this like, oh no, I don't want to journal. But I don't want you to sit there and write down all the negative things that you're feeling, because that only reinforces it. You're reinforcing in your brain.
Exactly.
I feel like
you're writing it and then you're reading it.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why when I say journaling, I don't mean the normal brain dump journal. I mean positive reinforcement counter to the anxiety, gratitude-based journaling.
Right.
You know, and like there's even a part in the journaling where I have you visualize, because visualization is so important, you know, and so you're supposed to visualize my healthiest self, my anxiety-free self. Like, what's that look like? What's my future 6 months from now? You know, and it just can be bullet form. Yeah. You don't have to write a paragraph.
Well, and just like guided meditation and like using apps, that journal did that for me as well, because I didn't have to think about like what I want to journal about or like just the good. No, it has sections where you write and it keeps you on track. And then like the visualizing thing would almost lead me into my meditation. Yes. Because I'm just sitting there visualizing with my eyes closed. Like, what do I want my life to look like? Or, you know, like starting to believe like this is what my life will look like.
Yeah. Perfect.
So yeah, I was just kind of giving myself a better sense of perspective when I was practicing gratitude instead of staying in the negative. I feel like when you practice gratitude, it's bringing you back to the present, bringing you back to reality, bringing you back to life. And you're like, you know what? Yes, I do have things to be thankful for. Not to belittle what I'm going through. Right. But I don't want to sink into the victim mindset. Like, yeah, you do have good still. Let's look for it.
Exactly.
And yeah, I was just practicing on letting myself feel both emotions, experience both things without judgment. Because I had to teach myself that these are just natural emotions for the human experience. Like, what I'm going through is not some odd thing that no one else experiences. Like, I'm not the only one, because there'd be moments, like even in my sessions with you, which nothing against you, but I just remember thinking like, they don't get it. She doesn't get how bad I am. Like, this is not going to get better. Like, she just doesn't get it. And that's so not true. That's just like what our brain tells us. So
yeah. Well, I feel like anxiety it's a very isolating like emotion. You do feel alone in it. Obviously we're not. I mean, like I said, the statistics are crazy. There's millions and millions of people that have these kinds of feelings, but in the moment you do feel alone. So, yeah.
And that's why like gratitude's important, and like bring yourself back to the present, because when you bring yourself back to reality and you get yourself out of this anxious thought, you recognize like, I'm not alone. I have support. Yeah. You know, there are other people out there who experience this. There's no way in the world I'm the only one that experiences this. Like, because this is my body's natural response. So other people's bodies are going to respond this way. Yeah. So yeah, and this kind of goes into my next point of just like having routine. It was so important for me. I already kind of had a routine before, but it was very like rigid. Like I was very hard on myself about my routine. This is an area where I did need to provide myself a little bit of grace. Like there can be dishes in my sink at the end of the night. Sometimes that's okay, kind of thing. Because I was like a stickler for like just very clean, you know, I got to do this every single night. My husband's like, we don't need to sweep every single night. I'm like, no, the dog hair, we have to.
I feel like you and I are the same person. Like, Lindsay literally just said to me yesterday, you know, you don't have to vacuum every single day.
Yeah, like, but like it just
my OCD.
My brain, it just relaxes when that's done.
I know.
But I kind of had to train myself like, no, let's do, you know, more meditation or like get out and exercise instead of worrying about those things. Like those will be there tomorrow. Correct. I can work on that tomorrow. But I was literally writing down like my morning routine, my night routine, and kind of like holding myself to that. Like, did you do this today? And then I'm like questioning myself, well, no wonder you kind of feel crappy today because you didn't do any of that this morning, or you haven't done that in a week. So yeah, routine's really important. And then nature, just like getting outside. Like a good example is literally it's sunny outside right now. And I'm just like, a weight feels lifted off my shoulders because the sun is out, and just like getting outside. Yeah. Going on a walk with your dogs, your husband, friend, whoever. And then screen time was really big for me. Like in that time, I didn't have a whole lot of screen time in general, just because I was so in my head. But, you know, there were moments where I was spending a lot of time on social media looking for validation of other people going through similar experiences, or just trying to reason why I was having those thoughts, analyze the thoughts, all those things, you know. I'm like, okay, let's recognize this isn't healthy. We're not going to do that anymore. Get off Reddit. TikTok, all the things, and also just like almost like, what is the word? Like jealousy that I would be on social media seeing all these people seem so happy, all their TikTok videos, and then I'm sitting at home in panic and anxiety, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like
Yes.
how unfair. But
Yeah.
that's the victim mindset. I'm like,
It's also the comparison mindset too. Like I have to say, I think if you are someone who is in the depths of anxiety, if it's really prominent, taking a break from
for sure.
social media would be something that, I'm not against social media. I'm on it all the time.
yeah,
But there have definitely been times in my life where I do have to take a break because, you get, again, it's a vacuum. You get sucked in and, like you're saying, I'm going on TikTok and I'm trying to find people that are depressed and, and is it really helping me to listen to this other person's depressed video? Well, maybe it makes me feel like I'm not the only one out there, but now I'm getting sucked into their stuff.
right.
too,
And I would like, connect myself with them. I'm like, oh my
Yes.
gosh, they have bipolar.
So maybe I'm
I
bipolar.
have bipolar.
Exactly.
So yeah, it was just, it was all about perspective for me
Yeah.
on social media, recognizing that social media is just a highlight reel. And I don't know all the details about those people's lives or their background history, their health. Like, I don't know any of that. So the fact that I'm taking this one video,
Snippet.
5 seconds of their life, and they say, they got diagnosed with bipolar or whatever the heck that they were sharing, and then tried to relate that to myself.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you don't know all the details. Like,
Right.
you have no clue what's going on in their life. So I think that's just important in general on social media
Yes,
to have
I agree.
perspective.
I
Like,
agree.
a lot of it is just a highlight reel.
Take it.
We're
with a
all
grain
guilty of that.
Take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. 100%. What else? Anything else?
My last one was just like awareness and mindfulness. So just give yourself a chance to slow down, because I was like, go, go, go. Like, I was literally just talking to my husband the other day, like, I never used to take naps. Like, I just couldn't. Like, my body could not relax enough to do that. Like, I just really didn't give myself time to do that. Not that I want to take a nap every single day, but I remember in the journey of my anxiety, there was a day where I literally fell asleep on the couch, and I woke up like, oh my gosh, like, I've never done that before. Like, I must be giving myself a little grace instead of worrying about, something that I could be doing in my house or something else I could be getting done on my checklist. I'm just letting myself relax a little.
Which is interesting because you are a perfectionist. And do you feel like some of that perfectionism, you've let go of some of that?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'm still a perfectionist to an extent, but not as bad. I've definitely let go of it, and I made myself practice that, like, throughout that whole time. There would be dishes in my sink or maybe laundry that I felt like needed done, and I would just make myself not do it to show myself, like, look, it's still there tomorrow, like, it's fine.
It's okay.
And it's not like I'm saying, oh, I don't need to wash my dishes anymore or do my laundry ever. But it's just giving myself a little bit of grace on the days that I need it.
Well, it's what you said. You were being super rigid with yourself before, and that is very common with that perfectionism mindset. Perfectionism is actually self-sabotage.
Oh, yeah, for
we
sure.
don't realize it. We think by being a perfectionist, like, oh, we're just high achievers. We're going to do everything perfect, and that's good, and that's positive. Well, obviously, and this is, again, I feel like so many of these topics, it's like there's this fine line, like the fine line between giving yourself grace and being a victim, or getting sucked into validation. It's the same way with this. You obviously want to be productive and, like, get things done and do things to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
But to be so rigid and nothing less than perfect.
Right.
You're adding to your anxiety. That actually stimulates the anxiety.
Yeah, for
so I think what you're saying is, you've got to be able to walk away from stuff like that.
Yeah.
And be okay with it.
And I just became more mindful of how I was talking to myself. Just like we were saying earlier, like, speak to yourself in those, struggling times, like it's your little self or your niece or a friend. Give yourself grace.
Yes.
And like, you're saying, and I live my life by this, it's just about balance. You don't want to do one extreme or the other. It's just about finding balance and always bringing yourself back to that. Like, if I notice, like, I'm all about anxiety, I'm like, okay, then I need to practice gratitude. And then bring myself back to a balance. Like everything's just bringing yourself back to a balance. Even with like eating healthy, like, yes, I want to eat healthy 80% of the time, but it doesn't mean I can't eat a cookie. Like,
Correct.
I'm going to eat a cookie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to have chips.
Yeah.
I think I talked about this. We just had our retreat a few weeks ago. And one of the things I talked about, and I think it goes along with everything that we're discussing, is becoming an observer of your own thoughts, which goes right along with increasing your self-awareness.
Yeah.
So often, even if you're someone that doesn't really have anxiety, we just kind of live on autopilot. So we get up, we hit the ground running, we do as much as we can in one day, we go to bed, and we repeat. And I think in order to change your inner narrative from a negative based one to a more positive, decrease anxiety, whatever your mental block is, your issue, you've got to be able to kind of step outside yourself a little bit and start observing those thoughts.
Yeah.
Like I know I've like the rabbit trails that my brain goes on. I'm well aware of them, and it's like, oh, there I go again.
Yep.
And then countering that with, reframing more positive or gratitude based kind of thing.
Yeah. And I always stick to this saying that I had a college professor say one time is we are human beings, not human doings. So don't get too wrapped up in life. Like kind of just remember to bring yourself back to like we're this tiny little thing on this huge rock.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a really good quote. Speaking of quotes, any quotes, scriptures, any words to live by for you?
Yeah. So I got a couple. One of them was from TikTok a figure.
TikTok's not all bad,
I know,
right?
Yeah. I was watching this video, and for some reason I stopped to watch it. And it just said, before we came here in this life, which I'm not saying that this is true, but they're just, putting this out there. God showed us what our life would be like, and we chose to live it. Like he showed us, this is everything that you're going to go through, that you're going to experience, and we still chose to live it. So that just kind of gave me perspective, like, if that is the case, like, I'm here for a reason. Like, let's keep pushing through. There's something worth living for here in this life. Like, I would much rather experience this human life and all these emotions on the spectrum than not at all, which is like why I'm so glad we have free will and get that. Because we get one life. Like, I think we forget that. Like, we're only here for one time, and so are all these other people around us.
Right.
So,
And it's very short. In the grand scheme of things.
I feel like as you get older, it goes faster.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
And then I also recently purchased a book from a local bookshop. I don't even know what made me stop in there. I just happened to see it, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go in there real quick. I don't even need any more books. But I found this little tiny book, and it said Joys of Friendship. And I think I'm going to eventually gift it to a friend. But it was so funny when I opened it up. It had like a little note in it, and this was after I'd already purchased it. Like I had no idea. I just thought the tiny book was cute, and I was like, oh, let me get this for my bookshelf. And it said, I live in gratitude for every gift of the universe, for every challenging moment that takes me out of my littleness, for every human obstacle that stretches me to the fullness of myself. Be patient with everyone, but especially yourself. Start all over again each day. And I don't know, that just like hit home for me because there would be some days where I would have panic and anxiety, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be what tomorrow looks like. I'm like, no, you can do exactly what that said. Like, start over again each day. Every day can be a new day. Just because that's what happened yesterday does not mean that's what has to happen today. So so I just love that.
Beautiful. Perfect. Yeah.
And then 2 more things that kind of I live by or just speak to me right now. When I was at Molly's prayer group, a lady said, out of the mess comes the message. And I'm like, that is so true. Like, no matter what it is that you go through, there's some kind of message in it. Right. Like, you may not see it yet, but eventually you will see what that message is. So, I just feel like mine was, you need to slow down and live life a little bit more. You don't need to be a perfectionist. And, now look at you. You're more patient, have more empathy, more understanding, and just like, look at what came out of that kind of thing.
I also think that, like, if I think back to knowing you before all of this, like, I would be around you, like, if we went bowling one time or whatever, like with your parents, you were so like quiet, and now you're just a lot more like outgoing, and I think that you engage with people more. I just feel like in an odd way, this has almost brought you out of your shell a little bit,
Yeah.
you know? That's just interesting how that all works. So,
And then the last one that I have been really sticking to a lot and referring to when I do get caught in my worry is the Bible verse, Matthew 6:34. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself.
yeah.
Because it's just like, there's a quote out there that's like, if you worry about it now and you don't even know if it's going to happen yet or what tomorrow's going to be like.
Right.
And then when it does happen, you're worrying about it again. Like, you're just putting yourself through extra worry for no reason. Like, so I've just kind of come to that. Like, I'm only going to worry about something if I need to worry about it.
Right. Like if it actually
It's happening.
Yeah.
Not before
exactly.
for
It's not like
Yeah.
if I worry about it for the next 2 years, like when it actually happens, I'll be better off.
Right.
Like
yeah, no amount of worry
It does
can
nothing
stop
for you.
something from happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For sure. Great perspective. Yes. All right. If anyone feels completely overwhelmed by anxiety, if somebody's listening to this and they're like, okay, I resonate with that. I'm completely, relating to what she says. What do you think they should do? What's the first step?
First thing I did, and I think a lot of people should do, is just lean on and reach out to your support system. I promise you there are people in your life who will have no problem helping you.
Yeah.
And if you don't feel like you have that, then reach out to a local therapist office or even online, or me or Molly, like a life coach, whoever. There is someone out there who would be more than willing to help you.
Yes.
And just know that everyone struggles at times. It might not be with anxiety, it may be with depression or anger or just a sad time in their life. And usually therapists and life coaches are those people because they've been through those things. So they understand your struggle. They are human, they're relatable, like they will understand you even if you feel like they don't. Depending on where you're at. But that is, just nothing to be ashamed of if you're going through a hard time. It's 100% okay not to be okay. It's really common, actually, and normal to experience that. And I just, want to say, like, just don't let yourself stay in that. Just, let yourself feel those things, but just don't stay there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. If somebody wants to connect with you, how can they do that?
My Instagram, Facebook.
What are you on Instagram?
Court_Grabill. And then I think my Facebook is just Courtney Grabill. Yeah.
We can put that in the caption. So if anybody wants to, I feel like there's going to be some people that listen to you that just want to connect and talk. So I think that that's awesome. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to share about this journey, about this story, that you feel like is important for people to know?
I feel like there's literally a million things I could say. I even wrote that. Like, I could just go on and on about all these things you could do. But I think it's just important to know that you'll get through whatever you're going through.
Yeah.
Even if you think you won't, you will.
Yeah.
You just have to find what works for you, because what's worked for me and worked for Molly might not, be your
It's not
thing.
a cookie cutter approach. Yeah.
And just to look for the good, because I see it now more often because of that. Just practicing that and training my brain to do that. So I'm just thankful for that, and I encourage all of you to do that, even in the midst of your struggle. And just, I said in my last line that no more negative Nancy here. I really try not to be negative, and when I am, I recognize it way quicker and change that to a positive, or just tell myself, okay, why'd you say that?
Right. Right. I'm so proud of you. I think that if I was to say anything about you, it would be, you have truly, like, I saw you when you were at your worst, and you were really struggling, like really struggling.
Yeah.
And there were times that you came into my office and I was just like, okay. And there was even a couple of times that you reached out to me, like when we were in between sessions.
Yeah.
I am literally dying here on the vine, and to see you come from that place to now this place where you are confident and strong enough to share this with people. And now you're not only sharing your story, you're like giving really good tips and tools and strategy. And there's this wisdom that's coming out.
Yeah.
And so I want to say that if you can do that, if I can do that, like anybody can do that. We're not anything like unique.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
you just have to take a step forward. And the thing I wanted to say about you is you have been super consistent. Like I think, like you said, it's been annoying at times.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But you just knew you didn't want to feel like that anymore. And okay, if I'm going to get myself better, then I'm going to do all these little things and trust in the process, be patient with the process.
Yeah.
And now you're in a much better place. And think where you'll be like a year from now or
Yeah.
5 years from now. It'll be really interesting to see, because I just feel like there's something special that you're going to do, you know, just
Yeah.
based on what I'm observing. I just really feel that way. So
Yeah.
it'll be cool to sit back and watch. So
Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
trust in the process for sure.
100%. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for letting
having
me
me.
be a part of your journey. I love you. I think you're a beautiful
you.
woman inside and out. And don't cry.
I'm not gonna cry.
So, all right. You guys, find Courtney on social media if you want to connect with her more. She's obviously fantastic. And if you are somebody that's struggling with anxiety, depression, panic attacks, and or all of the above, please reach out. You do not need to silently suffer and struggle alone.
We're constantly publishing new content. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell.